Hi, my name is Angus Ho with Daddy Dat, a part of the Ash Management Group. I want to show how you can budget as a full-time engineer, make real estate investments, and live an exceptional family life as a dad. So, come along with me in this journey of wealth. Renting and being a landlord is not always an easy job. It is a path to riches, but from time to time, you will run into a few common issues. Dealing and handling with tenant complaints is not easy sometimes because it's about handling expectations and emotions correctly. There are literally dozens of complaints that landlords make about some of their tenants, but in the interest of time, I managed to condense them into 10 of the most common complaints landlords need to deal with. By handling tenant situations poorly, you could dig yourself into a deeper hole. Tenants will get upset, trash the unit, stop paying rent. All this is a perfect recipe for disaster, like the 2008 housing crisis. What I mean by that is that the tenant will damage the house to the point that the property value will be well far below the price of a house in 2008. Okay, that's mean, but make sure you finish this video all the way through to the end. Oh, and if you haven't yet, smash that like button. Number 1 on the list of my most common complaints and how to deal with them is tenants who do not pay their rent on time. Tenants paying late or not at all is one of the most common issues. 66% of the time, tenants will not pay on time and end up in eviction. That statistic isn't great, so it's best to prepare a system to handle these situations. Make sure to treat the situation the same with every tenant. It doesn't sound that great to have just only a system to prevent tenants from paying late. So the best way is to prevent this from happening at the beginning in the first place. Make sure you check your tenants before signing a lease. What I always do is a credit check or ask the tenant for 3 months of bank statements. This will give you a good indication of their ability to afford the house and their ability to pay on time. Number 2 on the list is that the tenants do not take care of the property as expected. Each new tenant will have a new expectation and live a little differently. Some tenants will like to hang pictures on the wall. Some will love to remove the snow from all the sidewalks and take care of the lawn. Some people will be super clean, and some tenants will be just downright dirty. There will be tenants who like to party and have guests over. There will be those who just want to be private as well. It is important that everyone that moves in lives to a certain standard. These standards need to be well written in the lease. Then, if there are no complaints, I usually check their units once a year on lease resigning. However, if there are a lot of issues and complaints, then I typically inspect every 3 months. The next most common complaint is noise. This one is a little bit harder to deal with because it's very subjective. Some tenants will be more sensitive to noise than others. With noise complaints, it's best that the tenants work things out. The noise could be just enjoyment of life noise. You know, like the TV runs a little louder, footsteps from upstairs, or maybe even arguments that break out in the unit. These kinds of noises are really hard to control sometimes. Noises like guests coming over and parties, noise in the middle of the night, and overly excessive noise will need to be investigated, however. Unfortunately, getting people out based on noise could be tricky. That's why, in my eyes, it's best to protect your own interests first when it comes to noise. As long as they don't damage the house and pay rent on time, one tenant will move out naturally. The next most common issue is that the tenants will take their complaints to social media sites. Unfortunately, most tenants leave because they aren't happy with something and have found something better. Most of the time, they want to vent out somewhere and take it to the social media sites. If you're using social media to promote your houses, it's tough sometimes to have a good reputation with all your tenants wanting to vent on your social media sites. What I try to do is to offset the number of negative reviews with positive ones. Each time your tenants are happy on how you dealt with the situation, make sure they write a positive review for you. Number 5 on the list is tenants who refuse to pay penalty fees on late payments and NSF fees or extra charges that accrue. These payments are irritating to the tenants because they are penalty payments. The best thing to do is maybe make a one-time exception to these fees. Make it known that you will have to charge them next time. Letting these fees go for the tenant will cause trouble in the future for yourself. By letting these fees go forever, however, will cause trouble in the future for yourself. Therefore, make sure to remind the tenants about the fees and collect them every time. Number 6 is tenants who make it impossible for you to contact. When the tenants need something from the landlord, they are quick to tell you. When the landlord needs something from the tenant, they make themselves impossible to contact. I soon realized that the tenants will stop responding to your emails, your phone calls, and even your text messages. If this happens, the best way to get a hold of them is to tell them that you're showing up. If that fails, then ultimately you'll have to post a notice of entry. If things make it to this point, it just shows that your tenant is probably hiding something. Number 7 are tenants who repeatedly push boundaries and buttons. There will be those tenants who wants to break everything on the lease just to figure out how you'll respond to them. I also have tenants who makes a small complaint every month. This does happen, and the only thing I can do is question their happiness at the house. They will eventually move out if they are that unhappy. In the meantime, the only thing you can say is that the house is as is. They have seen the house, and the issues that they're presenting is most likely everyday issues with any house. Soon, I will make a video of the most common complaints, so make sure you stay tuned for that video. Number 8 are tenants who are practically impossible to get to leave. There will be tenants who will complain and doesn't think that they did anything wrong. Then, when it comes to asking them to leave, or when you tell them that you won't resign their lease, the tenant just stays. There are 2 paths that this tenant will do. They stay and pay for next month's rent, or they stay and they don't pay. If that's the case, then it will be a lot tougher to get the tenant out. However, if they do pay, then easy. You just keep them there for 1 more month while you start the eviction process. If they don't pay, they become an overholding tenant. At this point, a court order will be necessary to get them out. Bailiffs might need to be called in as well, and that, at the end of the day, will cost you time and money. This is the part where you don't want to get into. So, a new strategy is something called cash for keys. Give them the damaged deposit back so that they can move to the next house easier. Give them a good reference. Give them any moving help and everything they need to get them out as soon as possible. I understand it's a bit of a gut punch, but it's the fastest way to do things. Number 9 are tenants who allow other people to occupy the space or sublet from without permission. The worst thing to see is that you show up to the unit and someone else is living there. I had a tenant who would move someone else in there to help pay for their rent. This was not something I was expecting. Allowing this to happen means that utilities would go up, more parking would be required, and more traffic going through the common areas. Without permission, this is an immediate breach of contract and an eviction process should begin. And last but not least, number 10. The last one is tenants who grumble about everything no matter how insignificant it may be. I had a tenant who complained about the wall color after they moved in. They complained about the doorknobs and wanted locks on each door. Then they didn't like the blinds. They didn't like the windows. They didn't like the locks. This list goes on and on and on, and I was just frustrated. Unfortunately, there isn't much to do because their happiness is not something I can change. The thing to remember is that even if you make all those changes, the next tenant might not like it. Therefore, only make changes that you know for sure that future tenants will enjoy. All future complaints will just have to be ignored and the house is rented as is. Another deciding factor that you could consider maybe is how long have they lived there. If this tenant has lived there for a long time and it is also something you were thinking about upgrading, then maybe make both parties happy and just upgrade. Being a landlord is tough. There is no doubt about it. The best thing to do immediately, like right now, is to make sure you subscribe to this channel for more landlording tips when I come out with it. If you haven't yet, I just want to take this moment to make sure you've smashed that like button. It's super easy. By the time I finish talking about smashing that like button, you could have done it by now. It's absolutely free to smash that like button. There are no repercussions to smashing that like button. Also, make sure you join me and the many others at the Daddy Dat Facebook group for more resources and ask your questions over there. By doing everything correctly, staying calm, and making the right decisions, you can get very far with renting. What I've learned is that it's all a cycle. Every year is the same thing over and over again. So, at the end of the day, you'll have many documents and processes. After your 5th or 6th rental, you will be able to move into that dream house that you've always wanted. Travel the world every year the way you want to. Or have enough money to be financially independent and retire early. I hope this landlording guide has been helpful, and until next time, thanks for watching. If you like to hear more budgeting, engineering, or real estate tips, please leave a comment down below on what you want to hear. Smash that like button, subscribe button, and be sure to hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I post new videos every week on Mondays and Thursdays. From the Ash Management Group, this is Daddy Dat saving you money.